Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope you're doing good. I'm going to be doing already reading, summarizing literary task. Let's go. Old. 1 second. Okay. Wait a minute.
New India had been home to generations of his family, but today Neil watched the metallic mass of the space colony shrinking in the porthole of the speeding shuttle. In the 400 years since humans first colonized space, Nav Bharat, New India, had been home to generations of his family, but today he was traveling back to the old world, Earth.
Okay.
This week-long eco-trip allowed near-Earth colony teens to experience nature in its purest form, to breathe in fresh oxygen and be surrounded by plant and animal life in its original habitat, rather than life forms artificially manufactured in a lab.
Let's keep going.
While Neil was among those granted a short-term visitor status, others were specialists chosen for extended stay. Trained custodians were allowed permanent residence on Earth to protect its unique ecosystem from the errors of the past, even as Earth's colonies brought life to the barren stretches of outer space.
Are space colonies real?
In this science fiction story, the main character, Neil, grew up in a space colony called Nav Bharat, New India. New India sounds like the name of a colony founded by people who originally came from India, just as the British used New England to name their new home in the New World after their native England. Many science fiction stories take place in imaginary human communities in space. Some people think humans will be able to colonize Mars sometime in the future. But for now, space colonies are science fiction, not science fact.
Okay.
Fill in the blanks with important details from the story.
Neil grew up in New India. Now Neil is traveling in a space shuttle with other teens. Neil is on his way to Earth where he can experience nature.
Can you believe we're really going to Earth? Said the boy next to him, who wore the red emblem of the new chosen space colony, a neighbor of Nav Bharat. I'm Kwan. Seriously? Neil clicked the translate icon on his PomCom, just as the boy had done, so they could communicate. I'm Neil. Can't wait to see some wildlife.
Oh,
This one's my favorite, Kwan said, and projected a small monkey hologram from his PomCom. It somersaulted playfully between the boys, and they laughed.
cool.
Neil wanted to capture an original wildlife hologram on this trip, preferably of an Asian elephant. He had inherited his fascination for elephants from his grandfather, Nana, who had been a custodian himself and worked to save the elephants from extinction.
Which of these details is important because it tells about something Neil will do on Earth?
Neil wants to take an original hologram of an elephant. Okay.
Soon the shuttle reached its landing site. As the group exited the hatchway onto Earth's surface, they were greeted by custodians of the Old India sector with an enthusiastic Namaste. Namaste. Namaste is a traditional East Indian greeting accompanied by a slight bow with the palms of both hands pressed together.
How about custodian?
Sector. A sector is one part of a large geographical area.
Bejeweled. Oh, bejeweled.
Bejeweled. Something decorated with sparkling jewels or gems is bejeweled. Meander. Something that meanders moves slowly in a bending path.
Cool.
Neil followed their custodian to a hovercraft. Soon they had lifted off from the spaceport and were skimming across the surface of Earth. A green canopy of trees spread out below, with meandering rivers heavy with water winding through them. A glowing blue sky filled with cotton ball clouds stretched overhead, unlike the bejeweled darkness of space that they were used to. Neil and Quan exchanged grins as the hovercraft cruised to a stop. The exit hatch lifted open, and a ramp rolled down to the ground. We're in the jungle of North Old India, which has nearly regained pristine pre-industrial environment levels, their guide said. This stop is to introduce you to natural gravity. The jungle may look wild, but our smart barriers will keep anything truly dangerous away. We'll check that everyone is on board before leaving for base camp.
Fill in the blanks with important events and details that should be included in a summary of this part of the story.
Neil and his group land on Earth. Then they go to a jungle so they can be introduced to natural gravity.
Banyan tree, Neil spoke into his palmcom as he recorded the gigantic trunk and aerial roots of the enormous tree before them. It was stunning to be in the presence of life forms he had only studied in school. Parrots, monkey, crocodile. Neil jumped back as the large reptile slid into the river that ran beside the path. You dropped your visitor badge, Quan called from behind him. Thanks, Quan. Hold on to it for me? Neil wanted to keep looking for elephants. A flash of feathers caught Neil's eye as a large peacock unfurled its tail and stepped out of the banyan's shade. Neil held his breath and hit record. He would have to stay absolutely still and in close range to get a good hologram recording.
So that's a palm coin.
could hear the footsteps of his group retreating, but he was so focused on the dazzling peacock that he paid no attention. At last, the peacock folded its tail. The show was over. A roar above him made him glance up. The hovercraft was flying away without him.
Add a key event to the chart that should be included in a summary of the story.
Neil watches currently. Neil gets one last hologram, but the hovercraft leaves him behind.
Quan must have forgotten he had my badge, thought Neil. And no one knows I'm missing, because the system must have scanned my badge through Quan's pocket. Come back! Neil yelled, beaming lights from his pomcom into the sky. Scurrying furiously below with eyes fixed on the hovercraft, Neil crashed into a tree, smashing his pomcom. The hovercraft vanished into the clouds, leaving him alone in the wilderness.
To be continued. That's a real
Fill in the blanks to
cliffhanger.
complete a summary of the passage.
For 100 years in the future, a group of teens go on an eco trip to Earth while the group is in a jungle. Neil, the main character, is left behind in the wilderness. Bye guys, that's all the time we have for today. Can you please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell? Please and thank you.